Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, NBA reporter and analyst for Buha's Block, and welcome to another live show. On today's episode, I am thrilled to be joined by Cranjis McBasketball, aka Tim, of the Lakers Exceptional podcast and BBall Index. We said at the end of our Lakers Rockets preview that if by some chance the Lakers won that series, we'd be back here for previewing round 2 against the Thunder, and here we are.
Here we are, just like we all expected.
Just like we all expected. I think we got to do a mea culpa on our prediction. We both predicted the Rockets to win the series, so I will own that. I have been owning that all first round. After game 1, I said I thought the Lakers were going to win the series, and that is how that played out. But it's going to be the interesting series preview here. The Lakers are entering this series as massive underdogs, even bigger underdogs than they were against the Rockets. Just to set the stage here a little bit, OKC, defending champs, won 64 games despite being one of the league's most injured teams. J-Dub missed 49 games. A bunch of their rotation guys were in and out of the lineup all season. They had over 30 different starting lineups. They have the MVP favorite in Shea, likely back-to-back MVP, and one of the deepest rosters and best defenses of all time. The Thunder dominated the season series against the Lakers, winning all 4 games by an average of 29.3 points, which is the largest series margin of victory from a season series going into a playoff matchup of all time. So just on that alone, the Lakers do enter this series at a bit of a deficit. Thunder swept the Suns in round 1 in the 1-8 matchup. The Lakers pulled off the upset despite being the 4 seed in the 4-5 over the Rockets 4-2. Both teams are missing a star. The Lakers are without Luka Doncic. The Thunder are without Jalen Williams. And as I said, the Lakers are entering this series, depending on where you look, as either the biggest or second biggest underdog in a playoff series in LeBron James's career. The only other series where it was close in terms of the odds was the 2018 finals between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors, which, if you remember LeBron, that game 1, one of the best playoff performances of all time, that's spoiled by the J.R. Smith mistake, we'll call it, the blunder, and Cavs end up blowing game 1, and then they get swept in the finals. So just opening thoughts on this series. What have the last few days been like for you preparing for this? I know you mentioned you started getting the prep in after LA went up 3-0, and it looked like they were going to advance past the Rockets. But what has your preparation been like? And opening thoughts to kick us off.
Yeah, I had more time than normal to go through and prep thanks to the Lakers going up 3-0. I wasn't, I hope the team certainly took Houston seriously, but I'm not the team, and so I can save myself a little bit of heartache by getting prepared. Looking at that 29-point average margin of victory for OKC in those matchups, first thing I did was look at our expected points data at BBall Index and saw that it dropped all the way down to 13 points on average, which is still very bad, but not quite as historical. So it certainly felt in a couple of those games there was some shot making going against LA, and that's what the numbers are saying. So still, LA being thoroughly outplayed was worrisome for me. Looking at the Thunder and how they operate, it's hard to find it's hard to find things that they don't do well. It's hard to find a way that teams were consistently beating them just because they were so good this year. And we'll talk about it a little bit later. There are, some paths to victory potentially, but it depends on a whole lot going well. And after things, went to 3-0, the next couple games didn't give me a whole lot of confidence that LA can play up to that caliber to pull something like that off. And also the style of play the Lakers play compared to the style of play, teams that beat the Thunder during the regular season play aren't quite the same. And so we're going to need the team to be very sharp from game 1. I look at this as a series where you need to have no wasted motion, no feeling out, no, being vanilla to start. From tip off of game 1 for the Lakers to have a shot, barring an SGA injury, which, Kevin Durant being out for all but one game in this past series certainly helped. You need a finely tuned game plan, and it's going to be the biggest test yet for JJ, for LeBron, for Austin, who's, he played decently that last game, but we need a lot of guys to step up, and this is the big dog. There's, a little bit of a warm up from last round, but there's going to be a big, big difference in the caliber of both coaching and roster from round 1 to round 2. And I'm a bit worried for it, but I think I'm optimistic about a few elements.
Let's get into some of the numbers here. So I'm going to did my little breakdowns here. So first, we'll get into the regular season numbers. The Lakers were 53-29 with an expected win-loss of 47-35. Thunder were 64-18, expected win-loss of 67-15. Not going to go through everything, but you can see here that the Thunder were better than LA on both sides of the ball. We're talking about a top 7 offense, best defense, one of the best defenses of all time. As JJ noted today at practice, they are in the back-to-back 10-plus net rating club with the mid-90s Bulls, the Steph, KD Warriors. Like, they are, on paper, one of the best teams of all time going into this matchup. JJ said as much today, and he really set the stakes, which is the Lakers are playing a great basketball team. But you see, outside of rebounding, which I think is going to be a big thing, and it's going to be one of the things we touch on once we get into our questions. Outside of rebounding, and you could argue pace, they are a below average team from a pace perspective, though they do like to play a little bit faster than the Lakers. There's not a lot of weaknesses here with this Thunder team. Maybe some of the 3-point shooting, if you really wanted to nitpick that. Then we go to the season series here, and it gets really grim. Not a lot to be encouraged by. I think, if you're going to pick the Lakers to win the series or even win a couple games in the series, I think you almost have to flush some of this out of your head, because it was so one-sided where the Thunder just utterly dominated them. Look, if you look at the red here and just all the different categories, the Lakers ranked last in the league. The turnover percentage is going to be a big thing here, where I think that's just setting the sort of matchup is the Thunder are the best team in the league at taking care of the ball. They're also the best team in the league at forcing turnovers. And JJ said today at practice that Houston's best defense and best ball pressure is OKC's floor. And, a little bit of a shot at the Rockets, but I think that's more of praise of OKC and how great they are defensively. Of the Lakers right now are leading the playoffs in turnover percentage, and that was against Houston's defense. Now they're going to have to face OKC's defense. And speaking of that, just quickly before we get into our first Lakers question, just looking at the playoffs again, Lakers went 4-2, Thunder went 4-0. Lakers have actually had a better defense than the Thunder technically, but the Thunder have been far and away the best offense in the playoffs. So you take that slippage if you're going to be scoring nearly 127 points per 100 possessions. But you look at, they're top 2 in so many playoff categories so far. You look at like opponent points in the paint, opponent points off turnovers, opponent fast break points. And granted, they're playing the 8 seed Suns, so this isn't representative of what the Lakers will look like against them. But the Thunder were the only team to sweep in the first round and have had a great start to the postseason. Anything with these numbers jump out at you? I think the offensive rebound percentage jumps out at me, just how well they've been rebounding the ball when that wasn't a strength of theirs in the regular season.
Yeah, well, it's a jump scare is what it is for me. I've been over here with my eyes closed because this is rough, man. That regular season stretch was horrific, and this does not look the most encouraging either. The rebounding stands out for me. OKC, good in a lot of areas. The offensive rebounding hasn't generally been part of it. They're probably the best transition defensive team, and limiting volume is a big part of that. And that goes hand in hand with getting back, not necessarily crashing a ton. A bit different from Houston's approach. The points per game OKC gives up in transition is the fewest in the NBA. And so if they're able to do that and also rebound like this, that's bananas. That's not something that should be sustainable. You usually have to pick one or the other. So that is definitely a number that scares me quite a bit.
Yeah, they're almost coming into this series as like a much better version of Houston. Like I would say outside of offensive rebounding, the Thunder do everything better than Houston, but they're also doing a better job of offensive rebounding than the Rockets did against the Lakers, which on one hand, like you have to give the Lakers credit. They rebounded the ball much better progressively throughout the series. They actually ended up winning the rebounding battle the last couple of games, won the offensive rebounding battle the last 3 games of the series. And I think that's going to be a huge pivot point in this series is like, we know the Lakers are going to lose the turnover battle. There's almost just no way that they don't based on how good OKC is at taking care of the ball and how good they are at forcing turnovers. So they're going to be at a deficit there, but if they can at least match them on the glass, if not win the rebounding battle, that's where I think LA can make up some of that margin. If they're losing I'll say this. I mean, I went back and looked at it. Houston shot 60 more times than the Lakers in that series. If they allow OKC to shoot 60 more times, which averages out to 10 more shots per game, I mean, this is a sweep, right? Like, I don't think they can give up. They can't lose the possession battle to the degree that they lost it against the Rockets. And that, to me, is going to be one of the biggest things. Like, they have to find a way to make up that possession battle and not lose it as convincingly. But let's get into our specifics. So for those who saw our first preview and have seen our previous previews, the way we're going to do this is 1 Lakers question, 1 Thunder question, 1 Lakers X Factor, 1 Thunder X Factor, a statistical X Factor, a series X Factor, any random notes or observations or questions we have, and then we will make our prediction and we'll close it out with a little bit of Q&A. So what is your first Lakers question?
For me, it's how well and how they're going to defend the Thunder isolation possessions. This was a defense in the first round I was impressed by. I thought they did a really nice job showcasing more than one way to defend both ISOs from Houston, mostly high double teams against KD and then playing out of that, but more so in the post. They showed a plan B, a plan C when it came to defending Şengün in the post, and it helps that we were facing Baby Jokic in that he seemingly couldn't see more than 6 to 12 inches in front of his face. Houston was running the right help beaters. They were setting the cutters against the baseline doubles. And for 4.5 games, he was not finding the open men. They coached him up to figure that out in game 5, but the Lakers within a couple minutes pivoted. They sent other types of help and were fine the rest of the series. So it was good to see, and I think this was one of the first, opportunities we've had to see JJ like have his plan A, see the other team adjust, and then he has to really adjust his help types defensively. We're going to have to see that same level of nimbleness, preparedness. You've got to have plan A ready to go and execute, but then also, plan B and plan C ready to go as well. And you don't want to have to talk through that with the team for the first time in the middle of a game in a timeout. You want to have that ready in between these games before the series. And for the Thunder, it's not that they're a post heavy team. They don't post up much, but they ISO just as much as anybody. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander makes up 54% of their team isolation scoring possessions, which is the highest share I could find of any player in the NBA. So stopping his ISO is going to be key. And when I went back, and I know you reviewed the Laker OKC matchups from the regular season over this past weekend, I was looking specifically at how the Lakers decided to defend, and it was a lot of their flooding. It was a lot of deterring help, less so hard double teams, and more like when he's at the top of the key, you've got guys sagging into driving lanes. When he's at the wing, you have the strong side block and the elbow filled. And the goal was to have the on-ball player sit on his jump shot and use those extra help defenders, not to force a turnover, but just to make it so there isn't a driving lane. It's a type of help that loads up around the paint rather than inside of it. And it is the kind of help that other teams, the offenses, should be trying to cut into. What I saw from OKC wasn't quite that. They were more so trying to run pin and flare screens. So, maybe I've got a good shooter on the weak side corner. I'm going to have my weak side wing guy, maybe not as good of a shooter. He's going to go step in and set a screen basically for a defender who's sunk into the paint so that when I throw the skip pass, he can't get back out to the shooter. So they use that quite a bit. Only 42% of the time the Lakers ran one of these helps, I saw Oklahoma City run a counter, which is not good. If the Lakers were doing this, I would be on their butts for this being a low help counter rate. So to me, it wasn't the best kind of help beater to run, and it also wasn't a good rate. And so to me, that gives me some confidence. But then when you look at the results, OKC crushed an ISO in the series, And they ended up hitting, I think it was 5 of 7 threes when the Lakers ran help like this, and they hit every single contested shot except for one of them. So the results were bad, but to me, the shot quality in the film was encouraging. And I think you're looking at this OKC roster, they have a lot of guys that are good at their job, but if you can make them do other jobs, they're not quite as good. And you've got some spot-up three-point shooters that are not particularly strong. Alex Caruso shooting 30.6%, AJ Mitchell 30.8%, Aaron Wiggins 33.5%, Casey Wallace 35.4% on spot-up threes. Those are weaknesses. And if you can prevent SGA from driving and then he's having to kick out to those guys, I can live with that. Now, if they're going to cut, this is where the fact that they have a lot of guys that aren't great finishers really helps the Lakers. AJ Mitchell, Chet Holmgren, Aaron Wiggins, those are all guys that are in the A to A- territory with their difficulty adjusted rim shot making. Each of the Jalen Williamses is in the C range, and then literally everyone else on this roster is in D or F territory. SGA is an A+, of course, but if he's needing to pass, most of the guys he'd be passing to are not great finishers. So if LA can be really sharp with rotations, force the ball out of his hands, recover to those skip passes, I think they have a chance. But if they don't, this is a team that's going to score at will against some of the potential mismatches LA might give up with switching. And so that definitely worries me. I can see there being a lot of long nights of them picking a mismatch, them attacking off the dribble. This is a really, very drive-heavy offense, and they've got a lot of guys that can create their own shots at the rim, and that can create offensive rebounds, draw fouls. So to me, that's a huge element, and the biggest thing for me is how do you slow them down and defend the rim by not letting them get to the rim? And if they're able to cut into the middle of the paint, what is your backup plan? Are you going to have strong side doubles instead, or hard baseline doubles? What does that look like? How well does LA get to plan B and plan C if they need to? And how many of those plans are even viable? So to me, that's one of the biggest things for me. And I guess it's more of a question for both teams, but it is the number one thing I'll be keeping an eye on when it comes to the Thunder offense.
I like that you went with the defense because I went with the offense, and I'll put that to the side for a second. I'm with you. It was interesting because I felt I just completed my full rewatch today, and I felt like the Lakers did a decent job against Shea. And then I went and looked at his numbers in the season series, and he averaged 28 points per game on 55% shooting and 8 assists. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, those are basically in line with like his season numbers, but it didn't feel like that, at least watching it on film. But I guess it's going to be a combination, or maybe closer to their defense against Ant in the Minnesota series than their defense against KD. I don't think you can get away with the same hard double. Like I think you can mix that in a little bit, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that OKC will counter much quicker, even as quickly as after one possession, if the Lakers are throwing like 35-foot, 40-foot doubles at Shea. The Thunder are much better at playing with an advantage and playing out of those scenarios than the Rockets were, right? And I mean, that was my big question in the Rockets preview was, could Houston thrive with an advantage in those 4-on-3, 3-on-2 situations enough? And as we saw in the series, the answer was no. OKC is used to this. OKC is used to teams loading up against Shea, throwing the doubles at Shea, and I think that there are different levers that they can pull to capitalize against that in a way that Houston just couldn't. So it is going to be interesting to see LA's base defense and then what the plan B, C, and D is, to your point, and how quickly they can get to that. Can they get to that? I mean, obviously you don't want to get to even a plan B, right? Like you want your plan A to work, but assuming it does not work immediately or it stops working at some point, how quickly can they shift to that plan B, C, or D? And is that within game one? Is that game two? Like you don't want to waste a game, because I think this is not a series you want to go down 1-0, 2-0. Like all of a sudden, I think the pressure mounts in a way that like it would be great to steal game one, similar to the Houston series. But my big question is similar to the Houston series, but I think I'm still leaving that series with the same question of, can they score against this defense? So this is a specific one for OKC, but as I mentioned or put it up there with the season series, the Lakers had a 95 offensive rating against the Thunder. They could not score against them in the half court. And I'm sure there was an element of variance or shot luck within some of that, but the turnover rate was, I mean, they could just not run functional offense for consecutive possessions, and everything was a contested jumper or a turnover. And there was a few breakdowns where like Luka got downhill in the pick and roll a couple times. Austin maybe got past the initial line of defense that drew fouls a little bit, but for the most part, over the especially the games in OKC, which were both closer to full strength, what was really concerning how bad the Lakers offense looked against this defense. And then you add in the fact that, I mean, I know that there's a lot of noise with individual offensive rating, but over the season series, like the Lakers had a 90.6 offensive rating with Luka on the floor. They had a 93.6 offensive rating with Austin on the floor, 94.7 with LeBron on the floor. The only two rotation players who they had above in 100 offensive rating with were Vando and Jackson. So it was like, they just could not score. Didn't matter like what the combination was. They just could not score against this defense. And you add in again that they are coming out of this Houston series with a 107 offensive rating. Like they won that series because of their defense, not because of their offense. They did just enough offensively, but now they are facing right now the best offense in the playoffs. And so I think that the defense will take some hit to some degree. But even if you can maintain your level of defense, you're still going to need to score at a much higher level against a much better defense than the Rockets. So that's my big thing. Like I think looking at the film, they're going to play through LeBron in the post. They're going to run a lot of Austin and Marcus pick and roll. And I think those are going to be their primary forms of attack and entry points into OKC's defense. But they did not handle ball pressure well. They got picked multiple times in multiple games at half court. A lot of trying to thread pocket passes against two defenders. They were struggling to play through contact and getting upset with the refs. And as JJ said today at practice, it's just like, you should not expect calls against this defense. So I think, especially without Luka, I am interested to see like how they approach this offensively and if they just have the firepower, because I don't foresee this being as slow of a series as the Houston series. And I think for them to win games, they're going to have to crack 115, 120. I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of these like 99, 95 games. So they need to perform at a level offensively that we have yet to see in this postseason.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was enough to get by Houston. It won't be enough to get by the Thunder. They need to improve what they've done from just these past couple games, but also that regular season series. Looking at the expected points data to try to negate that shot making element, the Lakers were actually just about at expectations. So it wasn't that they were scoring poorly because they were unlucky. OKC was scoring a little bit above their heads because they were lucky, but the Lakers offense was just bad in those matchups. And so to me, that's concerning. And the fact that, you won the first round series, but the way it happened, looking game by game, looking at how the Lakers pick and roll offense evolved, their off-screen offense, they were slowly getting shut down game by game. And there were adjustments Houston was making that the Lakers were struggling to keep up with. And we saw just the effectiveness dip and dip and dip in a lot of important areas. And again, it was still enough to win, and they had a couple nice transition games to give them a good boost and get over the top. But that easy, route probably isn't going to be there against a Thunder team. And it's also a Thunder team that doesn't let you get to the rim. They don't give up open catch and shoot jumpers. Like none of the easy, we're going to be able to go at this. None of that exists for this group. And so we're truly going to need to see the Lakers up their game, both their process, their execution, their shot making. You need to have the basketball gods on your side to overcome the degree to which I expect them to probably be outplayed by. Like if you're being outplayed by 12, 13, 14 points, it's going to be hard to win games by shot making. You got to, only be outplayed by 4 to 6 points, and then some shot making can really help you out. Yeah, so I have the same concern that you do, just in terms of how much can you get from this team. You need more from Luke Kennard than some of the single-digit performances we saw from him in that first round. We need LeBron to score better. Austin needs to be in rhythm quickly, and you need good shot making from your Jake LaRavias, your Marcus Smarts of the world that have been below average, below expectation three-point shooters on the season.
What about your OKC question?
Yeah, this is a similar one to the last series, and for me, it's what their defensive game plan is going to be from a pick and roll standpoint and how well the Lakers can try to influence it. When we look at those 4 regular season matchups, the Thunder game plan, big picture, just adding it all together, was a we want to hedge you game plan in ball screens. 54% hedge, 28% drop, 18% switching. That was more than their norm on the year for hedging. On the season, they're more of a heavy drop team. They're average when it comes to their hedging frequency. But then when you dig deeper and look at each of the 4 games in order, game by game by game, they were slowly shifting more and more towards running drop coverage, which from my perspective is the best way to defend the Lakers, given how poorly they attack it schematically. The fact that Luka is out is a big detriment to the team against drop. You need pop threes, you need pull-up threes, and none of the like X's and O's ways to attack it are things the team does consistently. When we look at the 4 regular season matchups and the expected points per possession based on the, free throw trips and turnovers and shot quality the Lakers generated, they were at 0.84 expected points per possession against drop in these 4 games. Real bad, nasty stuff. Yeah, and the thing is, even against OKC switching, it was 0.91, so better, but still not good. So 2 of the 3 routes here is, bad offense and not good enough. 1.13 against hedging and blitzing, that's good. We'll take that. And that is what, that's kind of big picture how OKC faced the Lakers and game planned, but they moved away from that over time. And I think they were figuring out, hey, LA can't beat us against drop. And you think, just common sense, Luka and Austin, they can hit pull-up threes. Luka's not here. And, you're going to need Austin to hit a lot of pull-up threes to overcome this. And the other thing about drop is it tends to generate fewer free throws. It tends to generate fewer offensive rebounds. And so it might be a lot of one and done possessions where if Austin and LeBron and whoever's taking those shots isn't in rhythm, game's over because you're going to get one shot and that's it. So if OKC opens game 1 and they are hedge heavy, I think that really plays into the Lakers' strengths as a team. They're lob threats, they're catch and shoot guys, they're good on-ball decision makers. The fact that when they run sets against hedging, they're running, they have good coverage fit 81% of the time. Which is something I track. If you run a stack Spain pick and roll with the back screen against drop coverage, that's good coverage fit. That tends to perform better than when you have poor coverage fit. Against hedging, the Lakers run good plays often, 81% of the time. Against drop, it's 42%, so about half as often. They're less than 50-50. When we run a play, it's the right kind of play to run against drop coverage. And when your expected offensive rating is about 10 points worse on the season in these scenarios, and you have less roll-man involvement, less spot-up shooter involvement, it's going to be problematic. Against Houston, they were able to throw some lobs over the top against Şengün even when he was in drop, but still struggled against Houston's drop coverage, and Houston kind of let him off the hook. But I think it really puts a lot of stress and pressure on the Lakers scheme and their pull-up shooters if OKC, I think, scouts this well and opens the series and sticks with heavy drop coverage. So that's what I'm expecting to see. Do we see the Lakers run more inverted ball screens, which you're not going to run drop against? Like get Kennard, get Austin setting screens for LeBron. You're probably going to get either a switch or a hard hedge, show and recover. And show and recover, you can hit the little pocket pass to Austin and try to attack 4v3. Against the switching, maybe you can attack from there. But this is an OKC defense that has a lot of good on-ball defenders, so that might be problematic. When we look at Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren, they haven't switched much this season. Only 6% of the time for Hartenstein, Chet at 9%. You're going to get a lot of drop or soft hedging from them, which, it's not, drop is still in there, but you can still run like your stack actions, your veer actions against either of those coverages. So it at least simplifies your play calling potentially. So JJ has got to be on his game, pressing the right buttons. We got to have the guys making the right reads for some of these plays where there's an in-play read and react element to it. But if OKC opens a drop, the Lakers need to either beat it or find a way to get them out of it by running specific kinds of ball screens that you can't drop against, like really deep, post up and then run a ball screen or run inverted ball screens, things like that.
I like it, and we're thinking along the same lines. My Thunder question is how will they defend LeBron and specifically the post? So taking a different angle into their defense, because I think if you want to go back and find some optimism from the season series, I would go back and watch the second and third quarters of the 119-110 loss on February 9th. So that's right after the trade deadline. No Luka in that game for LA. So there are some things that I think are replicable from the LA perspective. No Shea and AJ Mitchell. So from the OKC side, like those are two of their starters right now. I mean, obviously Shea is their best player, but like AJ Mitchell starting in place of J-Dub with J-Dub out. We'll see if they stick with that or not. I think they will. But there was a heavy dose of LeBron post-ups and or pick and rolls into a LeBron post-up. And it did remind me of LA's offense versus Houston in that first round to some degree. And so, he was able to, if he got basically anyone that wasn't Lou Dort, and even Lou Dort, he had some success against, but it was like J-Dub, he destroyed in the post. Kason Wallace, Caruso, like if he got Isaiah Joe or Jared McCain. And one of the things that OKC was trying to battle with was like, where was the low man? How much help were they going to send over? And that game happened to be on the NBC broadcast. So they had Austin Rivers and Robbie Hummel next to the benches, and Robbie was reporting from the OKC side. And one of the things he kept reporting coming out of the timeouts was OKC wanted to play straight up more out of the post against LeBron, turn LeBron more into a scorer, but then also like Marcus was trying to take guys into the post, and he had some success drawing fouls. And so I could see if you're putting Isaiah Joe or even Kason Wallace or some of like their smaller guys that Marcus has a physical advantage over, he could take some of those guys in the post. And we saw some of that against Houston. Jake LaRavia had a really big game. That game hit a couple threes, had some cuts and post-ups and bully ball, which we've seen from him at times in terms of those kind of herky-jerky spinning post moves. He was able to get to the rim and get to the foul line. So I think if I'm thinking about LA hitting its offensive ceiling, like it starts first and foremost with taking care of the ball. I think LeBron and Austin are going to need to combine to be like 55 plus per game scorers, but between those two, and do so on high efficiency. But assuming they can do that or get close to that, I think it's also going to be LA leveraging its size advantage, especially without J-Dub on the wings and against the backcourt. And if they can do that and get guys into foul trouble or get OKC to shift their rotation a bit and stop playing, like if they can phase Isaiah Joe out of the rotation, who killed the Lakers. He averaged 19 points a game, hit 5 threes a game against them, like just destroyed them in the season series. If they could shift it more toward OKC leaning into its defense and then its questionable shooters like Dort and Caruso and Wallace versus some of their offensive guys and playing those guys off the floor, I think that's a way that LA can at least keep things competitive offensively and score at a certain level. But I mean, we saw some mixed results at times. I don't want to act like their post offense was brilliant against the Rockets. Like they had their moments, but they also had plenty of turnovers, and it just was not the prettiest offense. But I think that's a way. And so is okay. Like, are they forcing OKC to double and then play out of rotation? Are they, because you'd see sometimes, depending on where the low man was, LeBron would find a cutter. He'd find a weak side shooter. There's sometimes finding DA flashing into the middle of the floor, which we know LeBron loves hitting DA on those little shovel passes when he flashes into the paint. So there was ways that the Lakers played out of that created an advantage that I think if they can generate enough out of that, that's potentially the biggest entry point into OKC's defense. But what did you see on film and with your numbers in terms of LA's post offense and just, I think LeBron specifically is going to be the one that like has to be just a beast out of the post and playing bully ball.
Yeah, I like it strategically because it's a way to really centralize the decision making in LeBron's hands, simplify what the defense can throw at you, slow the game down, and really control who's going to get the shots up. And if, someone other than LeBron's going to get a shot, as long as you're reading the defense correctly and running the right kind of help, if they send help, or help beater, if they send help, it should be on a cut or it should be a catch and shoot like corner three or something like that. In the season series, with LeBron on the court, the Lakers scored 1.3 points per possession out of the post. Against the Thunder, they shot 7 for 11. They had no turnovers. It was
That's
much
really
better. It was twice as effective as the ISO offense. It was much more effective than the pick and roll offense, which was at 0.92 points per possession with a 20% turnover rate and very few free throws. So this was a way for LA, like what you're seeing matches up with the numbers. And also for the Thunder in general on the full season, this has been their weakest area relative to like ISO and pick and roll. So if you want to find a place to poke at, it's that post-up defense, and especially if you can get LeBron going to work against someone other than one of the centers for the Thunder. I think that certainly will help, and he'll have a good size advantage.
What about your Lakers X factor?
So I think this leads really well into mine. I normally wouldn't do this, but for me, LeBron's my X factor. He's usually a given. He's usually an assumed quantity. He was very good in the first round, but his half court scoring specifically was rough. He scored 0.81 points per possession, very bad. Of the 34 high volume scorers in the first round of the playoffs, so about top 2 guys per team, only one was less effective than LeBron. So not good. He had the 6th lowest 2-point percentage. He shot 24% on threes within the half-court offense. And over the last 3 games of the series, he shot just 63% on open shots at the rim. He was missing bunnies. He was missing layups. The last 5 games of the series, he was below his points, below the points you'd expect him to score based on the shots he took, where he took them, and how open they were. It's not his norm. This ties 5 games in a row, ties a season-long stretch of being below expectations. That is very much not the LeBron we're used to, and I don't have any reason to believe it'll continue. I think we can talk about shot quality, but the actual, like, how well did you shoot, considering the shot quality, isn't something that I have any reason to believe will just continue to fall apart. He has to be better. You are no longer playing the 26th ranked half-court offense. The Thunder are second, behind only Denver. And if the Lakers offense isn't excellent, they will lose the series. And to me, they cannot be excellent unless LeBron looks like himself. And so finding ways to get him going is important. Finding ways to lean on his mind and his playmaking is good. And his shot making, it just has to be better. He has to have better touch around the rim. He's got to have better shot making from 3. And so, he's got to step up to the plate. And we've seen him do it time and time and time again in his career and as a Laker. And this is a real tough test. And it would be, fantastic if he can rise to the occasion, because what he did in that first round, we cannot copy and paste. I like what we just talked about with the post. I think that's part of the way to success. I think a lot of him facilitating from the elbows and then trying to attack quickly and get downhill with some ball screens against a defense that probably isn't going to want to drop from, run drop coverage from the elbow. Things like that will be ways to get him going. But LeBron is he's got to be like A+ LeBron James.
His jumper is going to be a big X factor in this series because, to your point, he shot just under 32% on threes in the regular season. I think he's now at 28%, or I don't know the updated numbers coming off of Game 6, but I know it was in the high 20s going into Game 6. But rewatching the series, like, they were fine with letting him shoot, and you'd see if they ever switched like Isaiah Hartenstein onto him, he would play him to drive or play him to a post up rather than just let him shoot. So I think, he that's going to be one of the biggest things for me, is just if his 3-point shot is, so let me see. Yeah, he shot 30% on threes for the series. So like that's just not going to cut it against this team. I also think in general, the Lakers need to take more threes. That's going to be something I bring up a little bit later. My X factor, we're both thinking big here because I'm starting at the top or near the top as well. My X factor is Austin Reaves. Austin Reaves did not have a good regular season against the Rockets. Averaged just under 15 points a game, 3.7 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 4.7 turnovers, had 4 more turnovers in all 3 games he played in, shot 43% from the floor, 23% on threes. And to your earlier point, they were letting him just pull up wide open in drop coverage, pull up threes, and he was just missing most of them. So Austin, and he had the disastrous start to that game in OKC on April 2nd, where 3 turnovers in the first 3 minutes of the game, and really just not sharp enough, not locked in enough, and just telegraphing passes, and it was I mean, basically buried the Lakers. They were down 18-4, 4 minutes into the game. So he's got to be much better. And we saw against Houston, I thought he started to look more comfortable progressively throughout, like especially in that third quarter of Game 6. He was getting to the rim and blowing by Şengün in his drop coverage. But this is just going to be a totally different beast. And specifically when they put Cason Wallace on him, he has really struggled to create separation, to get LA into their sets, and Cason Wallace has picked him multiple times near half court. So I think that is going to be something that he's going to have to overcome in this series. And like, this is the biggest test for him, right? And this is, if you are going and getting that 5-year, $200+ million contract, I'm not saying you got to drop 30 a night on 50+% shooting, but I think he's got to be somewhere in the mid 20s and above 45% shooting, or if you're going into true shooting, like at least in the high 50s. I would love something in the 60s, but it's just he needs to be better, much better than he was against this team specifically, but also just this general opponent archetype. And so to me, for the Lakers to make this a 6 or 7 game series and have a shot to win the series, I think Austin has to be the third best player on the floor, or at least match Chet as the third best player. I think Shea will be the best. LeBron has, assuming the Lakers are playing through him in the post, he'll be the second best. And then I think if Austin can be the third best, the Lakers have a shot here. If it's Chet and then it's AJ Mitchell and then it's like Caruso or whoever, and then you get to Austin, that's where I think the Lakers just run into just a pure talent deficit against this team. The other one I would mention would be DeAndre Ayton quickly, just because Isaiah Hartenstein kicked his ass in the season series. DA was single-digit scoring all 4 games, had 1 game with 10 rebounds. But Isaiah Hartenstein was pushing him around. DA couldn't get post position. He couldn't catch the ball. And he basically unraveled in 3 of the 4 games. So to the point where like Jackson at times, was playing ahead of him and earned more trust from JJ. So I think it has to, like, it starts with, to your point, LeBron. I think LeBron has to be the best player or the second best player in the series. It'd be great if he's the best, but I think more realistically, the second best. I think Austin has to be competing for that third spot. And then DA has to at least match Isaiah Hartenstein. If he's losing that battle, then I think the Lakers are cooked inside.
Yeah, I agree. I've got some Ayton notes later, so I'll hang on to that. But on Austin, it was such a breath of fresh air when he was back in the series. And, whether it was early in the game or late game with tired legs and jump shots not falling, him being able to just turn on the jets and beat the dropping big to the rim, or beat a switching defender off the dribble and, either draw fouls, get a floater, or get to the rim or throw a lob. It was such a boost to this team when, like, Marcus Smart's not that guy, Luke Kennard's not that guy, LeBron was struggling at times to get downhill. Having a guy that can just get to the rim is such a key thing for this Lakers offense. OKC has a handful of guys like that, and so that worries me quite a bit, but it's nice to have our guy that does that back and able to add to what LA is doing, and it should help. We talked about, or JJ's talked about Luke Kennard, putting the defense in the blender. Austin on ball can do that without a play, without anything run for him, starting from neutral, and to me that's critical. And the fact that he was able to move like that, it looked healthy enough to do so, really, really important for me, and I think allows him to, I think that's the enabler for him to do what you're talking about. If he could do that, and he can hit the pull-up threes and be willing to take them on high volume, I think we can see him, put on a show and score a lot.
What about with the Thunder? Who's your X factor?
So I'm now realizing I'm really honing in on a couple specific things here. I've got Lou Dort, and the reason I picked Lou Dort is I see him being the LeBron matchup. When we look at how the Thunder have deployed players this season, what positions they guard, the guys that profile like guys that would be defending LeBron are J-Dub, who's out, and Lou Dort. And beyond that, it's SGA and Aaron Wiggins, who each generally are on really weak matchups on average. They're good in other ways defensively, but they are not like they're not the wing stoppers. So I think Lou Dort is going to be that guy. And he is someone that, as an X factor, I see him being someone that can have wide variance. If we get good Dort, it's bad for the Lakers, but you can also get bad Dort, and that could be really good for the Lakers. On the good side, this guy grades out as the #1 player in the NBA in the Basketball Index perimeter isolation defensive metric. He takes on tough matchups. He locks them down. He turns you over. He holds you to tough shot quality. He stays in front, and also has A or A minus grades with his ball screen and off ball screen navigation. So he is a lockdown perimeter defender. And if he is on LeBron all day long, it's going to be hard for LeBron to score and have the kind of impact that we need him to have. So finding ways to get Dort off of him, whether that's those inverted ball screens I talked about, which either switch, great, now he's gone, or they hard hedge, we're going to hit that pocket pass, attack 4v3. I think that needs to be built into the diet here. So that is on the good Dort side of things. But then bad Dort, there are things he's not so good at. He is a horrible scorer. He has an F grade at the rim in his difficulty adjusted shot making, an F from mid range, a D from 3, an F on self created looks, and a D on off ball looks. His help.
Well,
defense,
his grade against the Lakers in the regular season had to have been an A because he shot 50% on his 5.3 attempts.
Yes.
He had a magnet ball in the regular season against them.
He did, and when we actually look at his 3-point percentage by month, it is hilarious. 18% in October, 41% in November, 34% in December, 40% in January, and then 33, and then 32 the next couple months, and then 43% in April. So we are now into a new month. Where does the roller coaster go from here? I am hoping down. I will have my hands up. I will be, fully seated.
I think it'll go down from 50%. I don't expect him to shoot 50% on threes against the Lakers.
Yeah, he better not, man. If he shoots well, he is such an impactful player. If he doesn't shoot well, and he can be one of those guys that you're helping off of, he's not a good finisher, not a great cutter. It would enable a lot for the Lakers defensively in terms of loading up and slowing down the isolation. So how well he takes advantage of open shots, really important. And then how often he is on ball, super important. The good side of his defense is that really good perimeter defense. The bad side of his defense is he has an F grade in his help defensive talent. And on film, he stinks when he's in terms of rotating. So if you can make him the low man, or ask him to help a helper, he is going to stand still and ball watch instead on way too many plays. And so if the Lakers can get him off of LeBron and guarding someone standing in the corner, I very much like to play him, but if he's in my face and I'm on ball, he is the last person I want to be seeing. So you can see Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde when it comes to Lu Dort in a number of different ways. We're going to, I guess, roll the dice with the 3-point shooting, but there are things you can try to do when it comes to his defense and trying to minimize his impact that LA needs to be purposeful about. Early step-up screens, inverted ball screens, double drags, find ways to get him off of LeBron and stick him far away in the weak side corner and hope he misses a rotation.
To me, he's kind of the Lakers version, or the Thunder version, rather, of Marcus Smart, right? Like he's their best perimeter defender, but the shot can come and go. I think Marcus is a better shooter, but kind of a similar thing of like when Marcus is making his threes, it makes the Lakers very difficult to defend when Lu Dort is making his threes. Like I think the Lakers are going to play off of him to start. And then if he starts burning them, they'll have to adjust. My Thunder X factor is Ajay Mitchell. And so just looking at already in the playoffs, he leads the Thunder in on-off net differential, second on the team in just straight up net rating when he's on the floor. And I think they're really going to need him to have a big series, assuming that J-Dub is out, at least to start the series, if not for most of the series, because once you get past Shea, you can get to a dearth of shot creation and playmaking. And I think that was one of the things that really stood out in that game in LA without Shea, is like how dependent, like it just looks totally different when Shea's out there compared to even J-Dub being out there as the lead guy. But Ajay Mitchell to me is the guy with the second highest ceiling as a ball handler, playmaker, and passer, especially with J-Dub being out. So I think the Lakers are going to have their hands full with Shea, and based on just how consistent he is and how he fared against them in the regular season, I do think he's going to have some measure of success. But I look at Ajay Mitchell and Chet as the two guys of which one of those not heads of the snake, but I guess limbs of the octopus or whatever, can you cut off to some degree? And AJ Mitchell is a guy who, to me, especially like if we're assuming the Lakers are going to put Marcus on Shea, at least as like the primary matchup, it might be like Austin guarding AJ Mitchell. And I don't love that. Especially like he does have some, it's a funny comparison because he's also left-handed, but there is some Jalen Brunson to his game with the herky jerky, the decels, the footwork, and him operating in the mid-range. He also has clearly picked up some of the tricks of the trade from Shea, but I just think he's a guy who is going to be really important and could easily be their second leading scorer in this series. And he's also been doing a really nice job offensive rebounding. He's second on the team in offensive rebounds in the playoffs so far by like a decent margin. He's struggled inside the arc, been shooting the ball well. So I think we'll see that kind of revert to the mean and just how he was performing in the regular season. But I don't see the Lakers being able to. It's like if Shea's 27, 28 a game, 7-8 assists on like solid efficiency, you can't also have AJ Mitchell 18 to 20 points on good efficiency and Chet 18 to 20 points. Like you're going to have to slow down one of those two. And I think AJ might be the guy that they have a better chance of slowing down, but he also does provide some problems for them because just his ball handling and his ability to score at all three levels. And he does check some of the boxes that I think will test the Lakers defense. Like they have not been great defending super quick guys, especially if you have a jumper, right? It's one thing if it's Amen Thompson, you're trying to funnel him to certain spots of the floor. AJ Mitchell can, he's about 6'4" or so. He can, shoulder check you and rise up. So I think he's a guy that to me, he's also in this like new role, right? Like he was an afterthought for them last season, was not really a part of the playoff rotation. Now he's been thrust into this sixth man scorer role when healthy, but then now as a starter without J-Dub. So he's also in uncharted territory. We just don't know his makeup. Like, he had some big games against Phoenix, but I'm just curious to see like how he performs in this role and if the Lakers can slow him down at all.
Yeah, he's an interesting player. His on-ball, like self-created shot-making efficiency is in the 98th percentile, A+ grade. His off-ball shot-making, so a lot of like the catch-and-shoot, threes, dump-offs, cuts, 17th percentile, an F grade. So he is someone that he's got an F for his catch-and-shoot three-point shooting, but he gets to the rim well. I know his percentage at the rim isn't anything to call him about, but he's had 7th percentile quality at the rim, really tough shots he's taking. And when we adjust for those, he's an okay finisher at the rim, above average there. He's in the 98th percentile with his floater, 96th percentile with his mid-range pull-up shooting. He's got good playmaking, 99th percentile. He ranks 7th in the NBA in terms of the quality of shots he's created for teammates. And I think some of that is certainly playing off of Shea, but to be able to do what he's done as a passer on good volume, creating good quality, he's efficient, he's not throwing the ball away. He's a fairly well-rounded player other than that spacing element. And this season needing to step into more of a primary ball handler role with some of the injuries they've had, he's certainly grown as a player, only 23 years old. He's growing into his game and is, I worry about that Austin on him matchup if that's what it is, because that is something, if I'm OKC, I'm happy to pick at because he has really strong ability to score. His foul drawing it's good. It's not great, but it's getting better. And he's generally been guarded by players that are higher caliber defenders when we look at his data, BBall Index, than what Austin has been so far this season. So this will be a slightly easier matchup for him than he's used to seeing with other teams showing good defenders to him. And he can absolutely take advantage. So I think this is a really good pick by you.
What's your statistical X factor?
So this is one for me that I like to look at when the team we're playing wins versus loses. Like how do they differ? How does their shot profile differ, or specific players, or four factors? The thing that stood out for me is, I guess for the Lakers, how well they fare in the possession volume battle, which is their turnover percentage and offensive rebounding percentage, specifically for the Lakers offense. Effective field goal percentage, free throw rate, those are the possession quality battle. Turnover percentage, offensive rebounding percentage, that's the volume battle. And that's what's drawing my eye here. When we look at the Thunder's turnover rate forced in their wins versus their losses, no team in the league has had a larger gap this season. And looking at the same for offensive rebounding rate, only 3 teams in the league have had a larger gap. And when we look at, collectively between the two, it's certainly the largest gap. This is the number 1 turnover team in terms of forcing turnovers in the NBA when they win, 12th in defensive rebounding percentage. When they lose, they've been 10th in turnover percentage, still above average, but 3rd worst in the league with their defensive rebounding. So this is an area that if you can get 2nd and 3rd chances against them, it can help you keep up with the caliber of offense that they have. And this is something that the Lakers are going to have to do well with. They, as you mentioned earlier, they got better and better with the rebounding battle against Houston in that first round. They were the 4th ranked offensive rebounding percentage team the last 3 games against Houston. Nearly 35% of their misses they got the rebound on, up from being 13th of the 16 teams in over the first 3 games. So a big shift from the first 3 to the next 3 games. And when I look player by player in terms of who's crashing more, who's getting more opportunities, who's converting more on opportunities, there was one guy that stood out to me. You mentioned him earlier, and his name's DeAndre Ayton. He nearly doubled his chances per game from 5 to 9 in terms of just mixing it up, being in the right place to give himself an opportunity for an offensive rebound. And when you add that on top of his success rate also increasing, he went from 2 offensive rebounds to 6 per game. Now, the Lakers still left plenty of points on the table. There were a lot of second chance broken plays that didn't go their way. But if they can have that kind of presence from him, that would be gigantic. And I think that would do really good things for the Lakers. He, this season, when we're talking about Ayton, in terms of his on-off court impact on the possession volume battle, when we look at, adjusting for his teammates, adjusting for opponents, he's been an F this year. He's usually been really bad at this. And so him being able to turn it on was huge in that first round. It would be even bigger in the second round. It would be a little bit abnormal, but he's been that kind of inconsistent player that can lock in at times and be really good. We'll need it. Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Hartenstein are 4th and 5th in the NBA in our impact data when it comes to impacting the possession volume battle defensively. When they are out there, the Thunder turn teams over a lot more and they rebound a lot better. Unfortunately for them, when those 2 guys are out there together, or even one of them at a time, SGA's ISO game, it takes a hit. When they're out there together, it mucks things up. He's less effective in ISO. When one of them's out there, it's a little better. Exactly. And so if you as the Lakers can slow down that ISO attack enough that OKC feels they need to change their rotation rather than just their tactics, it can counteract some of what they're good at defensively and really help the Lakers out. So that's something to keep an eye out for. And then when we look at Lou Dort, Isaiah Joe, Jared McCain, SGA, and Wiggins, those are all D or F possession volume impact players because of poor rebounding. So if you are Jake LaRavia or if Vando gets any minutes, you need to be crashing against them. Rui, whoever it is, go get some second chances because those guys generally aren't boxing out well. That is going to be the way the Lakers stay in the series. And if they don't do it, I don't think they're going to have a great chance.
That's partly why I mentioned DA as like my backup X factor. Is just I think he did not play with the his OKC film. He's had plenty of highlights and lowlights and a lot of highlights recently with how he performed against Houston. But I think most of the OKC film would go on his lowlights for the season. And unfortunately, that's the task at hand here. Is it felt like as things kind of spiraled with the Lakers early in some of those games, he just spiraled with it and stopped playing as hard and being as forceful. And I thought Isaiah Hartenstein got multiple offensive rebounds against him, just one-on-one battle. And I think it's going to be an interesting test for him. Like, to me, this series, just taking a step back and looking at the big picture, it is a big test for everyone in LA's rotation in terms of like who fits with this group going into next season. Like, the Thunder are the team to beat right now in the league and in the West. And if guys can't hang, or if guys can hang, then I think that informs how you like. It's one thing to do it against Houston. It's another thing to do it against OKC. And I think going from for as good of a player as Alperen Şengün is, when you're comparing him to Isaiah Hartenstein's just bigger and stronger and tougher and more physically imposing. And he's not anywhere as close to as defensively limited as Şengün is. So if DA can replicate his success or something close to his success against Houston in this series, I think that will go a long way in showing that he can potentially be at least a short-term solution for LA at the center position. If he can't, then I think, at that point you have to really consider moving on this offseason. My statistical X factor is this one's simple, but it's just who's going to win the 3-point battle. And I think these are two teams that have been somewhere between, the regular season, middling to low volume 3-point shooting teams. And in the playoffs, though, we've seen OKC has ramped it up. Like we talked about, they increased the offensive rebounding. Like they've been doing some things a little bit differently. They've been a little bit more offensive minded and not as sharp defensively. Well, part of that's been from an attempt per 100 possession basis. They're second in the playoffs right now in terms of threes per 100 possessions. From a volume perspective, they're second in makes as well, and they are fifth in percentage. So you have OKC really ramping up the 3-point volume, and they've been shooting the ball well. With LA on the flip side, they are 16th in volume, so they are taking fewer threes than, several of those games in the Houston series, they didn't even reach 30 threes in terms of attempts. They're 13th in makes, but now they're second in volume. So I do wonder, with OKC's defense, JJ mentioned it today at practice, they allow the most spray out threes in the league, and they do allow a lot of those corner kicks. So the Lakers are going to, I think, need, this is a way that if they can somehow tilt the math in their favor from this perspective of matching or surpassing OKC at the 3-point line, winning the 3-point battle, having a hot shooting series, and also really increasing the volume, I think that is a way that LA can, again, start to shift things a little bit in their favor. Because I think if you look at from LA's defense, you're going to test Dort's shot probably nightly. Like you'll see kind of if he has it going or not. You're probably okay with Chet taking threes, Alex Caruso, J. Will, the center, although he's been shooting the ball much better over the last couple months. Kason Wallace, SGA, Shea, for as great as he is only shooting 31%. First few games of the playoffs. On the Lakers side, they're gonna let LeBron shoot. They're gonna let Austin shoot at least to start the series. They're gonna test Marcus's jumper, and they're gonna play off of Jake and Vando. So I feel like both teams' primary strategy is going to be pack the paint and test some of the primary guys and role players to shoot, and which team, it's going to be a small sample size, up to 7 games, like which team has the better shooting performance over that, over the series, to me is going to play a huge role in like who wins the series. And based on the playoffs so far, based on the regular season, you would lean OKC in that battle, but LA is capable, especially with Luke and Rui, and if Austin and LeBron have good shooting series to I think match them. And if they can do that, I think that's a little factor that could help shift things in LA's favor.
Yeah, I love it. OKC as a team on the regular season, their 3-point shooting hasn't been, or volume hasn't been a huge swing factor for them, but for the teams they're playing, and for the Lakers here, I think it is. And part of it, and this is something that's been bugging me a little bit, is I need to see more 3-point volume when JJ Redick is calling up these, JJ Redick type plays where we're running pin downs and flare screens and guys are catching and they're open. Let it fly. Let it fly. And we're seeing way too many of those
Luke
turn down.
Specifically, he's the main culprit here.
Yeah, the Lakers are 4th lowest in 3-point attempt rate on off-screen plays in the playoffs. That is way too low. They're it shouldn't be kind of a 50-50 proposition as to, for these plays that are generally drawn up for a 3-pointer, are we attempting the 3? If Luke gets good enough looks, he needs to be taking them, even if it's not like the most open, clean shot. Because if he can start taking those, he'll shoot a decent percentage. It's going to draw more attention from the defense, and that opens up more for the team. Another part of this is the Lakers have really struggled, and they were getting better game 2, game 3, game 4, and then it got worse from there in games 5 and 6. With their off-screen offense, just in general, attacking different tactics the Rockets were using, whether it be top locking, where you are, let's say Kennard's coming off of a down screen in the corner, instead of his man standing between him and the basket, his man was standing between him and half court, so he couldn't run towards half court. That top locking was really disrupting things. Jamming, where the screener's defender jumps out and tries to make it so he can't go off the screen. That was really disruptive. These are all beatable. They're all things you can counter. And the Lakers had an up and down first round, and that was something I really covered in detail over at my podcast Game to Game, and talked through specific sets and different counters. So I won't dig into all of that here, but it was something that went well the first couple games and was getting better, but then the last 2 games of the series really dropped off, and it really impacted the effectiveness of what has become a really big, slice of the pie for the Lakers this season. And in the playoffs, his expertise is in these plays, and so he's calling a lot of it, and he has some of the personnel to do so. They have to work well, and to me, if you want to get higher 3-point volume, it's going to be pull-up threes against drop, pop threes against drop, and a lot more of these off-screen threes. And all of those are kind of dependent on OKC, allowing that to happen. If they switch instead, the pull-ups and the pops aren't there. If they're top blocking or jamming, some of the off-screen threes aren't there. So there's a game within the game where tactically we need to see Redick and his staff make sure that they are checking the right boxes just to allow for Kennard to get his opportunities. And when he does get those, whether it's only 1 or 2 or it's 5 or 6 a game, he has to be ready to shoot.
Luke's going to be a big factor here because, he just, he had a great first couple games, came back down to earth the last few, but I also thought part of it was just a reluctance to shoot at times, and he has to just let it fly. He's that great of a shooter, and it's a really important part of LA's offense. What's your series X factor?
So speaking of Luke Kennard,
we got to put the caveat to the side of course, we don't yet know. J-Dub is week to week. We don't know his status going into game 1 yet. So maybe there's a chance he's ready by game 1. That does throw a little wrench in things to start here. But right now it seems like he's probably going to miss a game or 2, but we don't quite know. And then Luka, we just got a report from Shams today that continues to be week to week, and it's a slow path to his recovery. So with LA, I think one tough thing against LA in this series is it is every other day through the first 5 games. They'll be at 3 games by a week from now. They'll have already played 3 games, and then you're about to be playing a 4th on Monday. It's just a tough turnaround for LA, and tough to kind of find the pocket to put Luka back in the series, but we'll see if he's able to return. And it seems like it'd be more middle to late of the series, if at all. But putting those caveats aside, those giant caveats, go ahead with your series X factor.
Yeah, good caveats. I don't know that I've said Luka's name. If I did, it's been, just in general, hey, pull-ups against drop. If he could play, it'd be great. But yeah, putting that to the side, for me, and speaking of Luke Kennard, how well can the Lakers defend the rim? And when I look at that first round rim protection data, it worries me a bit. When you look at who is contesting the most shots at the rim, it's generally centers for each team. There are a couple teams that have forwards up there, Jalen Johnson or Scotty Barnes. Luke Kennard has contested the most shots at the rim of any Laker per game or in the series within that first round. It's very concerning to me. This is not his expertise. And it is something that if he is the guy that is there to defend the rim, when SGA beats, his man off the dribble, that's a problem. So finding a way to keep your bigs around the rim, very important to me in this series. There are a couple ways to do that. It is especially important because of how often Oklahoma City is looking to drive and kick. They have a lot of self-creators there. And so if they do get a good matchup, they're going to try to pressure you, get to the rim, try to draw fouls. And if that backline isn't there on time, or if they're there and on time, but Luke Kennard, I'm a little worried. Houston actually didn't shoot all that well against his contest in the first round, but I don't expect that to be a sustainable thing. Teams generally don't shoot 20% below expectations against him when he is, the anchor of the defense. So when we look at the different options the Lakers have for styles of defense and ways they can defend the rim, from a pick and roll standpoint, if you are hedging, your big man is up by the ball. You're trying to defend the rim by keeping the drive from happening, but that forces your backline to need to rotate. And so that might be LeBron, it might be Luke Kennard, it could be anybody. But that backline is your rim protection. If you are switching, anybody can be the rim protection, and the offense can try to pick and choose who's going to be there. And now we may also have smaller players trying to box out the offensive rebounders that Oklahoma City has, and that's, to me, worrisome. Drop coverage is the way to keep your center defending the rim, and I think that is something the Lakers should seriously consider for this reason and for a lot of specific OKC reasons. When I looked at their season and I was running a bunch of numbers, I'm glad I had more time to do this because this took several days, but adjusting for both who they were playing and also the availability of the Thunder's players, I looked at how their offense fared playing different defenses that play different styles. And playing drop coverage against them by far yielded the best results this season. We're talking about like a 5 or 6 point offensive rating swing, even adjusted for the quality of defenses. And isolation, I talked about earlier, there are many different ways to try to defend it. One way is OKC doesn't isolate nearly as much when you play drop. When you switch, they ISO way more. And this is fairly common sense, but in the data, we very much see a relationship there. So if you're going to play drop coverage and SGA has to attack his matchup as opposed to getting to choose from the menu of who is the weakest defender, his volume there is just going to be lower. If J-Dub does come back, he is not a good pull-up shooter. There are some other guys that aren't great pull-up three-point shooters, specifically pull-up threes. But even against SGA as a ball screen operator, we see his free throw rate drop quite a bit from 49% free throw attempt rate on ball screens down to 28%. So that is a crazy drop for him. He's no longer able to live at the free throw line if you play drop against him. His pick and roll scoring drops about 15 offensive rating points in general. His ISO volume drops from about 30% of what he does to about 20% of what he does. And that's in 19 games this season where opponents dropped 35% or more. So we saw, from a win percentage standpoint, it was much higher for opponents when they play drop more. And this is, to me, the way to defend the rim, defend the ISOs, defend the defensive boards, not foul as often. And I think it should be something the Lakers look to do. Another way they can try to do this is by playing zone. I talked about on the last pod with you.
Which we saw
Houston.
them throw out a little bit in the regular season. And then famously last year, Denver had a lot of success going zone against OKC in that second round series.
And teams did this regular season as well, big picture. The Thunder, just like Houston actually, were similar in that they both faced it often, and they were worse against zone than they were against man defense this season, which is abnormal. At least if you're facing it more than a percentage or two of the time. So with the lack of cutters and catch and shoot guys this team has, it has been something that has worked well. It allows your big man to stay at the rim, and their free throw rate drops just in general. So that to me is another way to try to accomplish the same thing. And looking at that is not a style of play the Lakers generally play. This is a very different. If the Lakers are to play optimal defense for an Oklahoma City opponent, they have to change their stripes. If the Lakers keep doing what they usually do, it is the exact kind of defense, using the same analysis I ran, that the Thunder obliterate. They have a 116 opponent adjusted offensive rating in games against low switch usage opponents. It goes up to 120 against medium switching teams, up to 122 against high volume switching teams, which is where the Lakers lived in this regular season and was very much part of why they got
Lakers
lit
love
up
to switch.
game after game. Yeah, man, it's what they do. It's how they built this team, but they switch without having a lot of good ISO defenders. And so they're going to have to send help. And another thing we saw in the data is when you send hard double teams against the Thunder, they crush that. Because they've got guys like Mitchell and like others that can take advantage of a 4v3 or a 3v2 or a 2v1. So if you're going to switch, you have to live in those kind of soft help zone-ish type situations. And I think if OKC is able to run the right help beaters and beat plan A, plan B and C don't look so appealing to me. So this is very worrisome, and why I think drop should be part of how LA approaches the series, just like zone is to me.
My Series X factor quickly, because I want to get into our predictions and then answer a few questions before we get out of here. It's basically your statistical X factor or along the same lines. I'm looking at the possession battle. And so, through this point in the playoffs, the Thunder are second in offensive rebound percentage. They are first in turnover percentage, meaning they turn the ball over the least. The Lakers, meanwhile, are 8th in offensive rebound percentage and 16th in turnover percentage. And Houston just shot 60 more shots than the Lakers in that series. Now, LA took 11 more free throws. But you look at OKC versus Phoenix, it was actually a bit closer. They only took 12 more shots than Phoenix, but they did take 20 more free throws. So in the season series, it was OKC plus 53 from the field in terms of field goal attempts, but LA took 30 more free throws than OKC. So that does offset that to a degree. but it was also a 70 to 49 turnover advantage for OKC in the regular season in terms of Lakers turned the ball over 21 more times than OKC did in the season series. So just point being, I think ball security, like JJ talked about it. He talked about it going to the Houston series, that the two keys were taking care of the ball and defensive rebounding. Today at practice, he said just taking care of the ball is straight up the most important thing against this team. It's shots on goal. Like, they need to get shots up. And he was like, if you look at any defensive disruptive metric, steals, blocks, whatever it is, OKC's top 5, and they're top 5 across the board. And similar to with Houston, they had, they have their little, internal labels, and they deem that Houston had 8 crashers in their rotation. They said that the Thunder have 7 disruptors in their rotation from a defensive perspective. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Is like, I'm actually going to spoil part of my, or one of the points of my prediction here. But if you were designing a team in a lab to give the Lakers problems defensively, it would look something like this OKC team. And when looking at, like, you're talking about the trends of the opponent in losses, but we know the Lakers have, like, when the Lakers have looked their worst this season, it's just been a turnover fest, and it's 20 plus turnovers. It's struggling to get into their actions, and it's really struggling against ball pressure. And I think that is one of LA's Achilles heels, if not the primary Achilles heel. And they're not just facing a really good or elite team at that. They're facing the best team at that in the league, and frankly, one of the best teams at that of all time. So it's like they are facing a team that their strength is LA's weakness, and there's just a really big gap there in the possession game. So that to me is like the biggest thing of, if LA can have like an average turnover percentage and even force like a little bit more from the OKC side, that does shift things where maybe LA can have an efficient enough offense. And this is a really close series that LA can somehow steal here. But based on the season series, based on the sample of the regular season, and based on how the playoffs have started, this is a major advantage for OKC, and LA is going to have to find a way to chip away at it.
Yeah, this is like a real elite opponent. I know in the first round, I came in here and I talked about how Houston's defense was very fake with the expected points data, and some of their best players like had clear tendencies you can play to, and their coaching staff doesn't optimize the roster well or adjust well. And we saw a lot of that. What I'm seeing on film, what I'm seeing in the data with this Oklahoma City team is they're legit. Their coaching's legit. Their top players legit. Their role players are legit. Their defense is the scariest thing about them. And I don't think they're going to, have their best player be injured for most of the series, or, I know Houston had 2 of their 5 worst offensive rebounding games against the Lakers, and they were benching some of their better offensive rebounding players. I don't think OKC is going to shoot themselves in the foot in those ways. And it's going to be really
a much smarter basketball team and coaching staff. I don't think it's close.
Yeah, very different echelons for sure. And I was impressed with JJ and his staff in the first round. I think I went from a lot of question marks just because we hadn't seen opportunities to filling in some of those blanks positively. But even with that, I think this is just a different level.
And so before we make our series prediction, any miscellaneous notes, observations, questions that you have that we did not touch on?
No, I was able to get through everything or find ways to fit it into commentary on your answers, and wanted to make sure we had time for answering some questions. So I've got nothing else.
I'm just going to rattle off a few questions here. We don't need to get into any of them. Just, is LA able to increase its 3-point volume, especially on the weak side against some of those post-ups and the help that OKC is sending? Because I think if they can get OKC to be like, we can't keep helping off of like Rui or Luke in the weak side corner, and that changes how they're sending the help out of the post, I think that would be a big win for LA. Can DA hold up against iHeart and Chet? How deep does JJ go with the rotation? Who is in OKC's top 9? I think they might have to shift their top 9, and it might just be dependent on which side of the ball they need to address. Does Luka or J-Dub come back at some point in the series? I think that's like arguably the biggest one. And then Lou Dort and his legs. What type of havoc do they potentially cause in this series? But with all that said, let's get into our series predictions here. What is your series prediction?
So This is a hard one, man. Actually, it's not hard. It hurts. Is I guess the way I'll phrase it. This is one that like our modeling says should be OKC in 4 or 5 at worst. I think I'll pick them in 5. I suppose I would love to see LA extend this to 6, and I think if they do, I'll feel really good about it because they will have found some things and impressed me tactically, and maybe we find a player or two that we want to keep around next year. But this is just the Lakers having to draw the best team in the NBA in the second round, approaching it without their full roster and in a roster that's built in a lot of ways around Luka and what he can do for you. And so it's going to be tough to get this series to the point that Luka is back. And if he is back, probably not healthy 100% and able to impact the game the way he usually can. And so they've got their best guy. The Lakers do not. And given what I saw in that first round, doesn't give me as much confidence as I was hoping to see. So I'll pick OKC in 5. And I, again, would love to be wrong. Do not want the Lakers to lose. I am very much a Laker fan. I am not a journalist. I will be, agonizing over here if they, any game that they're losing, I did in that first round. So I am pulling for them. But just objectively, I'll pick OKC in 5.
We are in agreement. I am picking OKC in 5 with an important caveat here. If this is any consolation to Laker fans, I picked the Rockets in 6 and the Lakers won the series in 6. And the last 2 times I picked the Lakers in a series was Denver in 2023, against Denver in 2023, and against Minnesota in 2025. And the Lakers lost those 2 series. So I picked against the Lakers last round and they won. I picked the Lakers a couple of times here in the last couple postseasons and they lost. So me picking against them might end up working in LA's favor, and we could come back here to preview San Antonio or Minnesota in the Western Conference Finals. But in all seriousness, this to me is there's no shame in LA potentially losing to OKC in round 2. Like OKC to me is clearly the best team in the NBA. They were my championship pick going into the season. They were my championship pick going into the postseason. I think this is one of the greatest teams of all time. I think this is one of the greatest defenses of all time. They have the likely back-to-back MVP, and the Lakers are shorthanded. They're without their best player and someone who has had success against OKC in the past, at least without him for the first few games. But I think if Luka's coming back game 4, game 5, it's I think at best like 2-1 or 3-1, right? I don't see LA winning a couple of the first one. So maybe Luka comes back and they can push this to 6 or even 7, but I think that's a very optimistic outlook here. I also think the schedule really favors OKC. We saw how LA wore down during the course of the Houston series, and with the exception of game 6, which you have to give them a lot of credit for how they closed the series. I mean, the games like game 4, they just did not have it. Even game 3, they didn't really have it, but they found a way to find the energy reserves in OT and the final 30 seconds of the game. I also think home court advantage is a big factor here, where I think being at home helped the Lakers in the Rockets series, where they didn't play as well in Houston up until game 6. But we saw it's going to be starting in OKC. Last 2 times they played in OKC this season, they got absolutely slaughtered. Not only slaughtered, both games are over in the first quarter. And I just think that's a really tough environment to play in. It might be the loudest home court in the league. It might be the best home court advantage in the league. And that's going to be something that's tough to overcome. So, frankly, if to your point, if we look at this series on paper, or you just flush away what the Lakers did in the first round, like everything screams Lakers getting swept here. But I think with LeBron's greatness and the uncertainty with J-Dub, I do want to give the Lakers a game. And again, maybe Luka comes back, or maybe they even find a way to get a couple. But I have a hard time seeing like this team, again, as I mentioned earlier, is like built in a lab to give the Lakers problems in terms of their ball pressure. They really force turnovers at a high level. They win the possession game at a high level. And the Lakers have really struggled with turning the ball over against ball pressure and losing the possession game all season. And it's been like, it's not, I know it was such a month ago at this point, but it's not lost on me that like Lakers had this 16-2 stretch, looked great against all these contenders and really good teams. They go into OKC and they just get ran off the floor 3 minutes into the game. And like, that was the story of these matchups in the regular season. So I would be happy to be wrong and see the Lakers win this series. And I've been wrong before with trying to predict them in the playoffs, and it's often been the opposite. But this one, it does feel a little bit more straightforward, where especially without Luka, I just don't think they have enough offense. And I mean, this is, I think, like JJ mentioned, the Bulls in the 90s and the Warriors in the 2010s. Like, I think this is the best team we've seen since the 2017 Warriors. And because of that, I'm not only picking them to win this series, I'm picking them to win the title.
Well said. Well, you really well laid out. It's not a good stylistic fit. This is a really good opponent. I will be, pulling for the team. We'll see what they can do. What they've done so far against this team does not, give me the most confidence. The ball pressure specifically is something that seems to muck things up. I was just looking at each opponent the Lakers have played this season and how their half-court offense has fared. And there has been no opponent they have underperformed most against in terms of the quality of their possessions, not their shot making, but the quality of their possessions compared to what my math says should happen based on their scheme than the Thunder. And that's because the ball pressure has been so disruptive that, like, even when you press the right buttons, they still muck things up. And so it really takes away some of the ceiling and some of the floor. And, having to play those first two games over there, we can see things get out of hand quickly. So you got to be really purposeful. And I think there is a path to victory in some of the games, but it is narrow and it is very specific in ways that if the Thunder adjust, I have a hard time finding, like, when I kind of game out, all right, if we do this, they do that, we do this, they do that. I run into some dead ends in a lot of different ways because of how well balanced and talented the Thunder roster is and how good their coaching is. And so you need them to just really be stumped with plan A in a couple different places for the Lakers to steal a few games. And you need that shot making factor for sure. But it's really tough to see happening.
All right. Before we get into the Q&A, we're going to take a quick break for the sponsor of today's show. Be right back in a minute. A quick shout out to Cozy Earth for sponsoring today's show. I'm on here talking basketball, watching games, looking at numbers, grinding film. But what about when you need some downtime? You want to be comfortable. You want to be cozy. And that is where Cozy Earth comes in. They got robes and slippers built for all those quiet moments, like relaxing after a long work day or just kicking back and watching a game. And with Mother's Day coming up, this is actually a great gift idea because it's not just a random gift. It's something that she's actually going to use every day. The robes are super soft. They have multiple styles, and the slippers are built to be worn all day, not just around the house for a few minutes. And the best part is you can try it risk-free. They have an 100-night trial and a 10-year warranty, so you're not really taking a risk here. And so if you're looking for a thoughtful gift for yourself or a mother in your life, go to cozyearth.com and use code BUHA for 20% off. That's code BUHA for 20% off. And if there's a survey after you check out, just let them know you came from the show Buha's Block. Because at the end of the day, home starts with mom. All right, let's get into the Q&A here quickly. First one from Dalboys805. Thank you for the super chat. Plus minus rotation. I say 8 to 8.5 man rotation. What are your thoughts?
So, Ayton, Kennard, Luka. Oh no, Luka's not playing. Smart, Austin, LeBron. Oh, I ran into an issue quickly. Hayes. What's that?
6.
And then I don't feel great about Jake.
So I mean, the starters
1, 2, 3,
will be
4, 5, 6, 7.
Da, LeBron, Rui, Austin,
Rui.
Marcus. That's 5.
Yeah, I'll say 8.
And then I think the bench will be Luke, Jackson, Jake. Vando led the group in offensive rating in the season series for whatever that's worth. But yeah, I mean, they're not going to even look at Vando on the floor. So they might need him for the rebounding at some point. But yeah, I'll go somewhere between 8 or 9 guys. But I lean 8. Laker Bob 01, thank you for the super chat. Draft idea: wheel plus 16th two-way spot for non-playoff teams. Tax-free minimum slot adds more chances to find talent without rewarding tanking. Great show. So, I mean, the wheel concept is you get a different pick over a 30-year period. That's predetermined, and then each 5 years it's weighted, so you're not getting like I think you get like a top 5 pick every 5 years. You get a top 6 to 10 pick, etc. And then 16th two-way spot for non-playoff teams. That's interesting. Yeah, tax-free minimum slot adds more chances to find talent. Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of the wheel. I like the wheel concept. I don't know if it's my favorite concept, but I do think it would help. Although I think it gets weird with like trading out your future picks. You could trade out a pick like 20 years from now or something. It gets a little hectic, but I'm for that. Dalboys 805. Thank you for the super chat. How do you schematically counter ball pressure? You talked about this a little bit earlier, but anything that jumps out at you?
Yeah, if they're ball pressuring just like one guy and trying to disrupt you getting into your offense, just get the ball to someone else, dribble it up the court, and then run a set or something like that. If they're denying someone, you can try to back cut, things like that. Top blocking in general, there are a number of counters where you can have the guy, back cut on one side and then come off of a down screen on the other side, or maybe you pitch the ball ahead to a big man and then float into a dribble handoff, things like that. But I think you're talking more on ball pressure, and for that, I would want to see like early high ball screens. You want to try to get into the half court with some velocity, have a flat screen so the screen's on the defender's like butt instead of their side. And that could be a way to, get attacking downhill, get that guy behind you and try to make things happen from there. Using double drag screens, things to just give the defense extra stuff to navigate around can try to help you get some space. But at the end of the day, you got to have a tight handle. You got to be able to take advantage when they reach. You've got to have guys like Austin that when they reach, he can, quickly pull the ball up and draw a foul, things like that. But ball pressure is tough. If you could stay in front and, be pressuring the ball, it is a really tough thing to counter in general. So high ball screens, try to attack downhill and make them pay for it. Because if you don't make them pay for it, you just allow them to keep doing it time after time.
And I think this is going to start with Austin. Austin's going to be the head of the snake from a ball handling perspective. KB24 any day. Appreciate the super chat. Off topic, ran the OC marathon today, and someone kept shouting Jovan, and I kept shouting internally, yo. Well, congrats on running the marathon. That is awesome. And I don't know if I'm capable of running a marathon. So, kudos to you for that physical and mental feat. But that's hilarious. And I was not there, for the record, so that was someone else doing it. Jay Spares, thank you for the super chat. Yo, thank God in East Coast Friendly Live, LOL. I think having AR back is going to be huge for Braun. All Houston focused on was LBJ at 41, wild man. And then he follows up, also, will Mark Spears pick the Lakers in 6 again? So there's some controversy with the ESPN picks because Mark Spears originally picked the Lakers over the Rockets. Then he ended up switching back to the Rockets on like the final version. And then I think it was Andre Snellings was the only one to pick the Lakers, and he was also the only one to pick Minnesota over Denver. So shout out to Andre. I mean, we touched on it in the X Factor section. Austin, he was my X Factor. Cranjis took LeBron, and they're going to need both of them to play great basketball. Andre Miller, thank you for the super chat. Ayton should straight bully Chet. He's too skinny. I agree with this. I think that they will try to have Isaiah Hartenstein matched up with Ayton as much as possible. And then they'll also throw out some Jalen Williams, who's a bit of a bigger body, at least compared to Chet. So I think OKC will try to limit Chet just straight up against Ayton as much as they can. But if they are cross-matched or that's just the matchup, I think Ayton should win that from a physicality perspective.
And Chet is the style of defender that he's really, really good at defending the rim. But if you can go into his body as opposed to trying to finish around him, I think that's the way to go. Of any of his areas defensively on the interior, he's weaker relatively. It's his post defense, which is a B+. Everything else is like an A+ or maybe an A-. So yeah, if you can go at him, try to beat him on the boards, that's your best chance, because otherwise he is just a lockdown interior defender.
And then we're going to close out here with a couple more from Andre Miller. Thank you for the super chat. He says, I don't want to see a lot of threes. Let's get physical inside, all bully ball all the time. We're bigger and we should act like it. It's our only true advantage. So I think we're in agreement here. The point for me, I do think you need a certain volume of threes, and part of the increase in volume will also come from the increase in pace, where we saw, I think so far in their series, OKC's at about like 4 or 4.5 more possessions per game compared to I think that at 96.7, pace versus the Lakers at I think 92.4 in their series. So like basically OKC was playing faster. There was more possessions in their series against the Suns, and I think that led to some of the offensive numbers compared to the Lakers' offensive numbers. But my general point with this was yes, I mean I talked about, I think the Lakers have to play through LeBron in the post, have to leverage their physical advantages. I just think if you're only doing that and it's like just this war in the paint, I think there at some point is diminishing returns. The Lakers have to keep them honest, and there has to be okay, if you're going to send all this attention to LeBron, double him, you got to be able to hit the kick out threes or get the blender going and find some advantages on the perimeter to keep them honest. Otherwise, they're just going to double and load up and just really contain the post. So I think you got to find that like inside outside balance. And I felt the Lakers didn't do enough of a good, like they shot threes really well, but still the volume was like a little bit too low in my opinion.
Yeah, I think keeping the defense honest is a really important thing. You can go into the series intending to attack this way, but understand the opponent will adjust, and if they can reallocate their resources to defending the rim, you have to have other options. You can't just try to go 1v2 or 1v3, and it's not going to work on the offensive rebounds. It's not going to work in the post. It's not going to work driving. So you have to be able to stretch the defense, and the more you can stretch the defense, the more effective you will be getting to and then finishing at the rim.
And then another one from Andre Miller asks, is Tim real? He's speaking AI slop Thunder Grok. That's a compliment of efficiency that you are you're being compared to an AI machine. We keep the identity under wraps. That's what we do with the on camera stuff.
Yeah. Some people have seen me. I was at Summer League a couple years ago. You've seen me. Yeah. I'm real. LeBron's real, and that's all that matters. Let's go Lakers in 6. I'm kidding.
You change your pick. So one of us picked the Lakers. That now we have both. we have our bases covered. Tim is real. I've seen Tim before. But appreciate you all for tuning in for the preview. Excited to see the Lakers and Thunder kick off in a couple of days. I do think it's going to be more competitive than the season series. If the Lakers can stretch this to 6 or 7 or even win this series, that would be a crowning achievement. On the LeBron mantle of, he's got the most decorated mantle, but beating this Thunder team, I mentioned it, like he's a bigger underdog against this team than the 2018 Cavs were against the Warriors in the finals, at least from the odds makers. So it's the biggest underdog he's been in his career. And I think even pushing it 6 or 7 would be remarkable and really speak to his greatness. But even if he doesn't, he obviously, he just beat a team and dominated a team in the first round and had an amazing series. So Tim, anything you want to plug before we get out of here? I already have the links in the show notes for BBall Index, for Lakers Exceptionalism, for your Twitter. Anything else you want to plug?
Nah, that's it. Go check out the site. Lots of cool data. It'll save you a lot of time if you want to quickly get to know free agents or trade targets or things like that. Give you good contextualized data, matchup data, skill data, context data, shot quality data, teammate data, all of that kind of stuff, gravity data. So give a look at BBall Index. Follow me on Twitter. I think that's it.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you guys. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. Buha's block merch is live. It is in the show notes. I will also put it in the comments. If you are a member, I have a special promo code for you to get a discount. So check that out on the Buha's Block Discord in the membership section. Appreciate you, Tim. Appreciate you all. And I will talk to you all tomorrow.